Hi, I'm Alice the Fabric Ninja. Are you ready to get into the holiday spirit? Well, this is my favorite holiday. Ooh, Thanksgiving. Pumpkin pie is my favorite. And Christmas. Well, the holidays aren't quite here yet, so you still have some time. And one of the things that binds all of these fall and winter holidays together is some amazing decor and an opportunity to give people you love gifts. So we need some gift bags, right? I have a selection of mini gift bags here that can be tailored to any holiday, and you can use them for things other than gift bags as well. I have put pony beads in the bottom, you know, those little plastic beads, and that makes it so my tools can easily stand up in there. You can use these in front of a place setting. Imagine this one, and everyone gets to draw their own pumpkin face on. These gift bags are pretty small, but I have sized them perfectly to fit 2 votive candles. But I mean, you don't have to put candles in here. That's just one option. I want you to know how big they are, and votive candles is something we all kind of understand the size of. So I am the fabric ninja, so obviously I have to do something out of fabric. But I do have an option for paper this time as well. So I have a sewn option, which works for fabric or paper. Yes, you can sew paper. And I have a glued option, which works great for paper, but you can also use fabric. Basically, I've just laid them out slightly differently. The one for fabric has seam allowances that go together, or typically sewn together. And the one that is glued has an overlap tab that you put glue on. Slightly different construction, but all in all, they end up with the same adorable gift bag. Let's talk about the design options. Yes, you get a gift bag, but a gift bag that's plain is still a gift bag. But let's make it more fun, right? Okay. Penguin, that's what we're gonna do today, but you can also choose mittens with or without the cutout, turkey, 2 different kinds of pumpkins, or a snowman. Then we have a Christmas tree, the penguin we're doing today. There's the other pumpkin, and we also have a beautiful fall leaf. This project really offers you a lot of options. You get to choose what kind of bag you want to make, its material being fabric or paper, and score lines or cut lines. And then you get to choose what design you want on it. And then you get to choose what you want the design made out of. I know it's a lot of options, but it allows you to customize, and it allows you to use what you have at home, which we all know is the best way to get a project done. If you already have the supplies, you are more likely to do it. Maybe that's why I have so many supplies. Check out the additional information to learn how to get the coordinating cord keepers from my website. Well, I guess it's time to get down to business and to make these adorable gift bags. Today, we're making the penguin. Because we're making 2 different bags, we need 2 sets of materials. We're gonna make a paper bag and a fabric bag. First, we have the bag, which on the paper is gonna be this candy cane, and for the fabric is going to be this green felt. Next, we have the penguin body. So a penguin is classically black. So on our fabric one, we are going to go for black. And on our paper one, we are gonna go for this dark purple. Why not make it a little fun? Next up, we need the wings, which is just a gray or a different shade of black, something to give it contrast. On our black penguin, we're gonna use this gray, and on our purple penguin, we're gonna use this purple, just a slightly different purple. Next, we need the belly fabric. It needs to have some contrast. I suggest a light color. So we have white for our traditional penguin, and we have a light purple for our non-traditional penguin. And lastly, it needs a beak. I'm gonna go for a yellow on both of them because it's a good contrast and is very stereotypical penguin looking. So even if you're going for weird colors, this yellow beak will help ground it back into, oh yeah, this is a penguin. And lastly, if you want a tie on your bag, there are holes up here. We do need some ribbon. I have a red ribbon to go with my green fabric over here, and a purple ribbon to go with this pink and purple penguin look. So we have 2 sets of materials. Now we got to get them cutting. All of our paper materials here are going to get cut the very traditional way. I'm going to attach them to a standard grip mat and use the fine point blade. The ribbon is not going to be cut on the Cricut. I'm just going to use a set of scissors for that. For our fabric, we need to do a little bit of work before we get to cut these out. All of our pieces need to be bonded to freezer paper. I have a big roll of it below me. It is just plain paper that has a wax coating on one side. This wax is going to get ironed onto our pieces, and that makes them bonded. So all those options you see in Cricut Design Space about bonded felt and bonded fabric, in this case we're bonding it to freezer paper, but you could also bond it to something like heat and bond, which would make it so you could iron all these pieces on. Bonding the felt to the paper makes it so the felt can stick better to your mat. You could absolutely put this felt onto a fabric mat or any of your other mats and it will stick, but it's not going to stick super well because of the fuzzy nature, and also it's going to leave fuzzy all over your mat. So bonding it to the freezer paper first, one, makes it easier to stick. So I can use even a light grip mat with this because this freezer paper bonds so well to the mat. And two, when I peel it off, I only have a little outline of fuzz instead of my whole mat being fuzzy. I'm just going to rough cut my freezer paper so it's a bit closer to the size of my pieces. If your felt has any tags, make sure to pull them off so that these don't get ironed. I have my household iron set just above the wool silk level. Technically, you should set your iron to match the type of materials you have, like cotton or polyester. However, the wax takes a slightly higher temperature than polyester setting. So I am just going to go quickly. And at this heat, it bonds very quickly and doesn't have a chance of melting the polyester through the paper because I'm going so quickly, and the paper acts as a barrier for that. It is important for the paper to be well bonded. So if you have corners that are peeling up, you will definitely want to hit those again. I am going to be using the light grip mat for my fabric. I know it seems counterintuitive, but that is because that freezer paper sticks so well. I'm going to use my standard grip mat for my paper. The gift bag design is just under 11.5 inches, so a 12 by 12 sheet of paper will do just fine, or a 9 by 12 will also work. And here's our fabric. Because this piece is going to take up the entire width of the sticky, I am going to cut my butcher paper just close to the felt. So the paper is going to go down, the felt is going to go up, and it will not take up the entire felt sheet this way, so I didn't worry about cutting around down here, and it would all be on the mat anyway, so I guess it wouldn't matter. If you don't feel comfortable with how well stuck this is, get out a brayer, that's the rolly one, and go over it. You don't want to use one of the scrapers because that could definitely detach the felt from the mat. I'm feeling really good about this, and this light grip mat is pretty new, so it's still pretty sticky. So let's go cut out our fabric bag and our paper bag, and then we will deal with cutting the penguins. And now for the computer stuff. You need to download the zip file for this video. I found mine in my downloads folder. You can either click on this and then go to extract all here, or you can double click on it to see what's inside and then press extract all. I'm going to have mine just extract to my downloads folder so it's easy for us to find. It automatically opened a folder for me so I can see what's here. And these are the files that we are going to need for our project. We have the paper bag, that's the one for gluing. We have the seasonal decorations, so all of them are in there. And the Sewn mini bag, that is for the fabric. It has seam allowances. So now let's open Cricut Design Space. I'm going to go up to the top right corner here for new project and all the way to the left for uploads. Upload image, browse, and then I need to find my downloads folder again. It's right here, and all of those things are right there. So we are going to do our sewn gift bag first because I already have the rotary cutting blade in the machine. So we're just going to do that. We can see how it looks. Upload. Click on it so it's highlighted in green. Add to canvas. And then you can see our project. If it happens to not be all the way on screen, you do have the minus button up here and the plus to get it in a good size for you to see. I have some instructions along the side that tell you what everything is. Green has those slashed fold lines. Yellow just has this divot at the top to help you know where to fold. We have our finished size and we have directions. The first step is to ungroup. Next thing is we need to check the size. So I am going to click on this bag and the size should be 4.955 tall, and it's not quite. So make sure this is locked so it works proportionally. 4.955. Click on it. It grew just a little bit. You may not have this problem, but I do notice that sometimes Design Space puts things in a slightly wrong size. I do have the size for the height and width in both inches and centimeters, so you can check and make sure everything is perfectly to scale. I'm going to also click on my lower one here and do the same thing, 4.955. Now, of course, if you're only using one of those, it doesn't really matter. You don't have to resize both. Next up, it says delete or hide unwanted bag. Well, I am going to hide the yellow one. We're going to do the one with those little slices today. And now we're going to delete or hide these instructions. So click on those and make them go away so we only have what we need. Now it's time to cut. Click Make It. We have just one mat today, which is perfect. And it looks set up the way we already have our mat set up. It's exactly where I want it. If my material was somewhere else, I certainly could move it around. Press Continue. It's going to connect to my maker. And then I'm going to pick which fabric I'm going to use. Even though my material is not felt glitter bonded, that is what I'm going to select. This setting works so well on bonded felt. I'm just going to use it always. It always gives me good cuts and I never have to change what type of item I'm using here because often it suggests a fine point blade, which I know just doesn't work with this particular felt. So let's load up that machine and get this cut out. Real time, 2 minutes and 25 seconds. And now I press done. Now we're going to do the paper bag. Go back to uploads, upload file, browse, go back to our downloads, into the folder, and now we're going to do the paper bag. Open, upload, select, add to canvas. And now we're going to follow our instructions. First, we're going to ungroup everything. And if you already know which one you want to use, you can just get rid of the other one or hide it. But we're going to check the size. These are even a different size than the last one. Super fun. Our height on these, 4.955. That's the size of this. And this has two pieces here. We have our score lines and we have the bag. So you definitely want to make sure you grab both if you're resizing this. This is the one with the small cuts in it, and this is the one with the score lines. So we are going to do the one with the score lines. So I'm just going to get rid of that. Now it says if you are making a scored bag, you need to change the inner lines. So that's this. If you look at the side, it's the one that's not yellow. You want to change those to score. And it will change them to these little dashed lines, but it will be one continuous line. It's just how it denotes them. And then you want to attach these 2 layers. And now we're ready to make it. Oops, I forgot to hide those instructions. Just press cancel, hide the instructions, and then try again. There we go. 1 mat, continue. And I'm going to use a light cardstock on here. This is just a piece of paper that's used for like albums and memory books. It might actually be a little bit lighter than that, but it's a good option for me. Now we have our scoring wheel here. I don't actually have a scoring wheel, so I am going to change it over to a scoring stylus. And that also means that I don't have to stop and change my blades. Everything is together. I have a fine point blade already in and a scoring stylus. So let's go load up that mat. Real time, 1 minute and 22 seconds. And now I'm done cutting the paper bags, so I'm going to click done. And now you're going to take them off the mats just like you always do. So set the fabric aside, do the paper, flip it over, peel the paper off, keeping that paper flat, letting your mat be the thing that curls. When you get to the part that's cut, it may get stuck on. What we can do is we can just take off the extra paper and then do it again with just the part for our project. So we have our good paper. We're going to set that aside for another use. And now we're going to just get what we wanted off of here. And then you can punch out anything you need to, but it looks like it's all well punched. We have a little flaw over here, but since this is in the area that is going to be glued anyway, we can just leave it be. But I am going to go ahead and fold along all of those score lines while it's fresh in my mind and fresh off the paper. You can always run a folder along these to really help them get crisp. And then we have one that's horizontal across the whole thing. Now you may think, it's time, I'm ready, let's just glue this up and make it into a bag. I mean, sure, you can do that, but it's going to be much harder to put your design on it. So if you're looking for just a plain gift bag, go ahead, put it together right now, you're done. The holes are there already for the handle, you got it. But if you want to put a design on it, front or back or both, set it aside and wait until you have your penguin pieces cut so that you can actually put them on when it's flat. It'll be a lot easier. We're going to do the same thing to our fabric here, but with our fabric, we don't have to worry about making sure that it stays perfectly flat because it's bendy flexy, it's fabric. Make sure you get all of these remaining little bits off of here. I'll do that later. Actually, I'll forget and then I'll do it next time I have a project. Peel off the freezer paper. And then pull out those little openings for the string. They like sticking in there. They are completely cut. It's just the fuzziness holds them in. This one has seam allowance here, and then it has seam allowance on the bottom pieces for it to go together. But just like the paper one, don't put it together right now if you want to put a design on it. It's easier to put it on when it's flat. Okay, now let's cut out these penguins. Now we're going to deal with the fancy, the pretty part of it. Go to Uploads, Upload Image, Browse, head back to that Downloads page or wherever you put things into the folder. And now we need Seasonal Decorations. Upload. Select and add to canvas. Here are all the decorations that I have for you. We have some instructions here and it tells you the size of everything so you can make sure it's the right size. The top row is all 2.5 inches tall, and the bottom row is all 2.5 inches wide. Make sure to delete and hide anything that you don't want to be using. So let's get to it. Today we are doing the penguin, as I mentioned before, but you have all of these options. And with a Christmas tree, I have extra decorations here just to make your Christmas tree a little more fancy. And those circles are really tiny. It's easy to lose one in the process. With our leaves here, there's a rotary cutter option and a fine point blade. The rotary cutter overcuts just a little bit and it turns this one into confetti. So this is what you'll want to use if you want to use the rotary cutting blade. It's your choice. You just have options. So I'm going to ungroup everything here, and then I'm going to get rid of what I'm not working with. So we know the top row is 2.5 inches tall. So I'm going to change that up. And now our penguin is ready to cut. I'm going to click Make It, and you can see we have all of these different boards, but I'm actually going to put it all on one board. Now you could go to each individual one, press Move Object, select the board you want it to go to. Now it's there. Now you move it. That takes a lot of time. So I'm going to press Cancel and show you what I like to do. I'm going to highlight everything, and then I'm going to change it all to white or black or another color. It doesn't really matter. And then I'm going to click Make It. They're all on the same board now. And because I'm using little pieces, it makes this easy. So I'm going to put that one in that corner. And then I'm going to move these wings to this corner. And I'm going to move the yellow to this corner. Certainly you don't have to put them in corners, but this just makes it super easy for me when I'm laying out the mat. I know that they are in this order and I can lay out both mats the exact same way and then just change the cutting blade and the material that it's cutting. So we're going to pause here and head back over to the table to get our pieces set up and ready for cutting. Okay, we have our light grip mat for our felt penguin. I'm going to move the felt down a little bit so I don't have to trim around it, which means I'm going to have to move the design space down a little bit. Now we're going to have, what was it? Yeah, it's the tummy here. Remember, you can use your brayer if you need some help getting these to stick. Now we have our wings up here. I'll scooch those down a little bit too. And lastly, our little cute nose. Okay. These are ready to get cut. Now we're going to do the same thing with the paper. We have our dark body going up here. We have our light tummy going down here. Then we have our wings and our nose, beak. Make sure those are all good and stuck. And let's go cut them out. Now we're going to cut out the paper pieces first this time because I have the maker already with a fine point blade in it. Just make sure all of your papers are in the correct spot and that you put the mat in the same way you have it set up. Let's go to the maker. Whoops, we got to press continue first. I'm going to click that same light cardstock. We need a fine point blade. It's already in there. Let's go. That noise you heard was my mat hitting the wall. Make sure your Cricut is away from the wall when you're using it. It doesn't appear to have affected the cut of any of these, so we're going to move on to the next one. Now we're going to cut the fabric one. If I had my fabrics in the perfect position all the way to the edge, we would just change up our material here to our bonded felt and keep going. But I need to make some changes here. So I'm going to press Edit, and I got to move this in and down, these in and down as well, because my felt didn't go perfectly into the corners. And I just move that up a little. Okay. All of those are fine now. Glitter felt. I'm going to put this in the machine. Time to take these off the mat. Okay, first up, the paper. Simple and easy. You guys know the drill with paper. Fold back your mat to help things come off without getting them curled. So right now I'm just taking off the excess paper so that didn't get curled and can be used again. And now we're going to take off these pieces. If they're too small to do the curl thing, use that spatula to get under them so they come off smoothly. Yeah, I told you I was going to forget to take those off later. Luckily, these little circles didn't impact the cutting, but they totally could have. And then we have our little nose that is going to absolutely get lost. And now for our fabric. Go body. Sometimes the felt gets stuck inside of here. This one is not releasing completely cleanly. So I'm going to go in here and assist it. This felt is really thick, this gray stuff. So I could have used more on it, or I could have picked a felt that was the same as all the others, but meh. Then we have our nose, beak. Why do I keep calling it a nose? We have the tummy. There we go. And don't forget to clean up your mat, because you will forget it later. Use whatever your favorite material is for gluing stuff together or sewing things together. I am going to use this thing so I can get some of these pieces on. So I'm going to take the tummy, turn it over, and use this facing the correct way. There we go. So I'm going to roll some adhesive on there. Don't forget that near the top of the head. Place, oops, I got a piece stuck out there. Place the tummy on top. I like to leave a little bit of room from the bottom, but vaguely center it. Then we have our wings. They get attached right up here. The wings have this kind of flat edge here. Make sure you have a right and a left. And then they get attached right there. Certainly you can add some more glue once you know exactly where you're going to place them. But before then, you don't want to get glue in too many other places. And now we have the nose, there, the beak. There's no way I'm going to end up being able to use the roller there. So I'm just popping that on. Okay, could he use eyeballs? Yeah? No? He looks cute either way. If you want eyeballs, I would just use a Sharpie and do a little point for each of them. But honestly, it looks super cute without eyeballs. Now, when I do embroidery though, I do add eyeballs with French knots, but either way, you do what you're happy with. So I'm going to set this aside to dry, so it's better once we attach it to the bag. We don't have so many things moving around, and it'll just be easier. And now for the felt one. Guess what? We're going to use glue. I already did an embroidery one. Hand embroidery is not something that everyone likes to do. I just used whip stitches around the tummy, and then I did a blanket stitch around the edge. They're two of the easiest stitches out there. I also did whip stitching around the edge of the bag to just bring it out. Because I've already done sewing on one of these, I'm going to actually glue on this next one. It's okay to use glue on fabric. Not everything has to be sewn when it comes to fabric. But I am going to sew the bag together because I chose the pattern that's designed for sewing. This is tacky glue. There's a lot of glues that don't work well on felt. Felt is just so fuzzy, and there's a lot of glues that just don't work with it. So I'm going to stick a fair amount on here, and then I am going to spread it out. And now we have our two wings. Make sure again you have a left and a right, and this time I'm going to kind of look to see where I want them, and then I'm going to put my glue in that general area. One thing I like to do is actually grabbing the wrong wing and using that to spread it out and putting that on the other side with the extra glue. And then this glue is already kind of spread out for me. I have 2 wings now. You can adjust them still. It's not, you know, instant sticking. You want them to stick out a little more or a little less. And then of course the nose. Again, this glue is clear when it dries, so it's okay if you get a little too much on. Even if you're going to embroider it later, it's still super useful to glue everything together because then it's not going to move, which I love. I love that it's going to stay still and I don't have to fight with it. Our penguins are ready, and now it's time to add them to the bag. And they are on their project, and this one is just a little bit above where that seam line is going to go. Now we're gonna glue together the paper gift bag and sew together the fabric gift bag. So our paper bag here, we've already folded all of the score lines, and I am going to use this, which I'm completely incompetent in using, to glue it together, because that seems like a great idea, right? I'm folding my score line and moving some of this glue back so it's not going to overlap. And this lines right up to here. This is the beginning. So I'm going to fold in the end pieces so you can see that these are what needs to have glue on them. Then one's going to go over and the other's going to go over. So this piece doesn't need glue on it. It's going to stick down. Let's start with one chunk at a time. So this can have all the glue on it that it wants, but don't go above the crease line. This flap has glue and the other side also needs glue, but this already has glue on it. So flip it over, maybe keep your hand in the way so it doesn't get glued down to your surface. There you go. Okay, these pieces fold in. Now pick one of those other sides, maybe the not so pretty one. It's gonna go that way. And I'm gonna stick my finger right in the side, the center, to get it to stick upward. I have put glue everywhere on here except for this spot. Now I'm gonna fold it up, and it's kind of like, how am I gonna press it down? Like, how do you make sure it's well attached? Well, I like turning it this way and then stick something like those candles that I have or this glue bottle inside and just squish it down. And when you go to actually like turn it into a gift bag, if you don't want it open like this, you stick your fingers in the side and you just kind of squeeze it together. I haven't put score lines there in case you want to keep it really boxy. Okay, so now we're working on the fabric one. We need to sew it together. This short edge goes all the way across, and you see both of these have a little bit of an angle. Those are gonna go right together, and this is the edge we're gonna sew first. I'm gonna put some clips on it just to hold it together. You can absolutely sew this by hand, and I have here, but I am gonna make this one on the machine just because it's a little bit quicker and it's a little bit different. So let's head over to the machine. So we're gonna be sewing this first edge here. We wanna be using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, which is generally just the edge of the presser foot, but we don't wanna go beyond the edge of the presser foot. We really wanna keep it as close to the edge, even tucked in a little bit, because we don't wanna go over that 1/4 inch. I'm starting a little bit in, and then I'm going to back up to my edge, and then I'm going to sew forward. I am using some contrasting thread here to make it easier for you to see. I definitely suggest that you pick colors that are going to kind of disappear into it. Once I get to that edge, I'm going to back right up, and then the machine I'm using today happens to have an automatic thread cutter, so why not use it? So this is the part we just did. Now we're going to do the part along the bottom. So I'm going to turn it, and then I'm going to meet those two bottom edges. Same thing as we did before. We want to make sure our edges are lined up quite well. Don't go beyond the edge of the presser foot. I'm going to back up to the edge there and then sew forward. And once I get to the edge, I'm going to back up and again cut my thread. So now we have sewn this long part here. Pardon all my random threads, I haven't cut them. And then we've sewn the bottom. The last part that we're going to do is the corners. We're going to box them. So I'm going to take these two pieces, and I have the front kind of in my hands and the back in my hands. I'm going to pull them apart, and this corner here is going to lay on top of each other. So let's do that again. We have this square corner, so I'm going to take here and here in my hands and pull those out so that lays right across it. And now I prefer to open up this seam so everything lays flat. Stick it underneath the machine and do the same thing we've done before. And the last side we do exactly the same. It does have this seam that's already here, which can kind of throw you off, but just pretend it's not. Grab those two corners, pull them out, and then you see how it's doing this little like divot thing? It's totally okay. Because our seam is going to come right here, it's going to come to where it's not divoted. I swear, it works. So stick it in whichever way is comfortable for you. I like putting this seam on the top so I can see it and make sure it gets open. So I'm going to back up to the edge, and then I'm going to sew forward. So that is all the sewing that I needed to do. Let's flip this right side out. So we have sewn up our bag at the machine, and right now it's just kind of like this mass that doesn't look like much. Go through and give your threads a cut, maybe with a pair of scissors that are actually sharp. There we go. Okay. So all of our threads are trimmed up, and now we need to turn this right side out. So I'm just gonna stick my hand in the bottom and turn it. I wanna make sure I'm gonna poke out all of those corners with my finger. Make sure they're nice and square. So there we go. We got a gift bag, but it's not very crisp, is it? It's kind of like nebulous, kind of open mouth shape. Well, remember we have these slices here that create those vertical corners. You have a couple of options here, really three. The third option is just leave it like it is, it's good enough. The other options are ironing it. Ironing can do amazing things. This is polyester felt, so make sure that your iron is not going above the polyester setting, but you can go through and iron each one of these corners and it will be a lot squarer. If you don't feel like ironing, you can always sew down the edges like I did here. Although these didn't have the slits, I did just fold it and sew down where the edge was. If you chose the option without slits, there are little divots at the top of all of these spots, which help you figure out where to line it up while you're ironing or sewing. So pick whatever way you want and put it together. Ah, my penguin just lost his arm. So I'm gonna actually sew up the edges by hand because it will add just that little bit of hand sewn folk art detail. I am going to be using a white embroidery floss. It comes like this at the fabric store. I have a large collection of it from over the years, and I have taken my floss apart, so I'm using 3, and there's another 3 right here. I'm gonna pop inside and secure my floss to the seam allowance. Some people like making a knot. I generally just take a few stitches, and that does a pretty good job of holding everything still. If you do have a tail that's still sticking out, feel free to use it to make a knot, just to make it even more stable. Now I'm going to stick it out the corner here where the seam is and pop back onto the outside. Give that a fold, and you can pick whatever stitch you're feeling. I think a whip stitch really shows off well here because it goes around that edge. So I'm coming out this side, I'm going over the top and then taking another stitch all the way through. So my thread is going to wrap around that edge. There we go. One edge is done. You see how that makes it a lot more sturdy because it's holding that crease right in there. So I can choose to go along the top edge with the same treatment, or I can leave the top edges plain. It's really all up to you and what you want it to look like. I'm going to go ahead and just sew for a while. We'll see what it turns out like. So both our bags are done and they just need a ribbon. The ribbon can tie them shut, or the ribbon can be a handle. I have some ribbons here. I have a satin ribbon that would look good on either one of them. And I have this grosgrain ribbon that has a bit of a texture. I know this penguin is still missing a wing. If I glue it on right now, I'm gonna end up messing it up anyway, so I will re-glue that in just a few minutes. So I'll do this one as a handle. Just kind of envision how long you want your handle to be and then add a few more inches, because you will always need that extra, or you can always cut it off. So you're gonna cut two the same length, and then I like adding some fire to the equation. Melting the ends of your ribbons just briefly will keep them from unraveling over time. And if you need to cut them again during this process, just make sure you seal the end again. Stick each end through your holes on one side, and then I like to tie them together for a handle. And also gives them a better chance of not popping out of the hole later. Whereas if you try to make individual knots, they might just go back through the hole. But if they're together, they're gonna stay. There we go. We got one handle, and now for the other one. Perfect and adorable. And this one, we're going to actually tie it shut. That might be a little long, but I'm gonna start with this anyway. So I'm gonna poke it in one and then out the other, and let's just tie it like a regular bow. Well, there we go. We have two penguin gift bags, paper and fabric. And any of these gift bags can be personalized for the season using the included designs or ones that you find on your own. We have, of course, the penguin that we've already used. Then we have the leaf, the snowman, our turkey, our Christmas tree, and our mitten, which comes in a design which is both cut out or plain. I'm using this one to hold some of my tools. If you did want to go this direction, I suggest using a cardstock instead of a thin paper. It will work just a little bit better. If you would like to keep going with any of these designs, I actually have made cord keepers that match them. Here we have the penguin and here we have the turkey. Obviously the turkey's not holding onto a cord right now. It's got some of my embroidery floss, but you can still see these work. And there are cord keeper designs for almost all of these. You can find them in the Fabric Ninja freebie library. Just check out the link in the description or on this video page, and you'll see how you can sign up for my newsletter and get access to these files and lots of other free files, including this adorable elf hat and Make It a Unicorn kit that you can apply to any type of hat or hoodie. I have some great files and projects that I would love to share with you. Make sure you click that link to join up for my Fabric Ninja freebie library. My name is Alice the Fabric Ninja. Thank you so much for joining me today. Oh, is this not the right holiday?